Welcome, everybody, to the Homeschool Connect Expo live interviews. Today is July 12th, almost right in the middle of July, and we are on our language arts fair of all month of July. And so thank you for coming in and being partaking in the Homeschool Connect Expo. And today we have WriteShop. And we have Kim from WriteShop that is going to tell us a little bit more about the curriculum and explain a little bit more how it works. But if you're watching live, all the links are down below. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching, click on there. You can go out to the exhibitor booth for WriteShop. You can go out to our language arts fair that we're having all month of July. And so all the information is going to be down below. And if you're watching live, remember you can comment, and that comment comes in directly into me, and I can ask that to Kim. So, and if you're watching afterwards, just go out to the exhibitor booth. There's the contact information out there, all kinds of videos and information, and then you can click right onto their website and get right out to them. But let's bring Kim in and have her introduce herself. Hey, Kim, how are you?
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for being a part of Homeschool Connect Expo and being part of WriteShop and getting out there to help out homeschoolers. But before we begin, why don't you start by introducing yourself and tell us a little bit more about WriteShop?
Sure, I'd be happy to. My name is Kim Kautzer, and I'm actually the founder of WriteShop. We are celebrating during 2021 our 20th anniversary as a company. So we've been around a long time, although a lot of homeschoolers, especially newer ones, are still not familiar with WriteShop. So I'm excited to be able to share some of that with you today. But I am a veteran homeschool mom. I homeschooled for 15 years, starting in the late 80s. So we were kind of right on the cusp of the hiding behind your doors and not letting anybody see you, to a lot more freedom that we know today about being homeschoolers. And it's been a great journey. I have 3 kids, and WriteShop came to be out of a need to teach our son to learn to write. He was our youngest. He struggled. My girls didn't struggle. That was just not they were intuitive learners and easy to teach, but my son really struggled with reading, writing, math. He just had a hard time with academic, not really understanding. I mean, he was very bright, but he had a hard time getting his ideas down on paper and learning to read we just had a hard time getting him going. But WriteShop happened because of that. And he was 12 and my friend's son was 12. And we thought, well, let's maybe do a writing co-op kind of a class and we'll invite in some other homeschool kids and see where it goes. And so we started a class to teach writing to about 14 middle school aged kids. And we discovered at the end of the first lesson that the kids in the class were all terrible writers. They were all struggling. They were all worse off even than our own sons, who could hardly put pencil to paper. Long story short, we had to start writing our own lessons and couldn't use the material we had chosen. And over time, we saw success, and eventually we published. So here we are.
I mean, that's awesome. I mean, and usually the great products and great things you hear about, it's born out of necessity, and there you were. It was your son, but I think that's a story that a lot of people have, because I hear that all the time of, I have a reluctant writer and my kid hates that part of it and everything else. Do you get that quite a bit? Because I mean, that's kind of how WriteShop started.
That is probably the number one question we get from parents. They either tell us, my kid's a struggling writer, my kid's a reluctant writer, or my kid hates to write. And I usually have to boil that down to the essence of what the parent is usually saying, what the child really means when they say, I hate to write. And honestly, Sam, most of the time, it has nothing to do with ideas. It has everything to do with holding a pencil and putting words on paper. So yeah, so I have, I mean, just in my years and years of doing this, it started with Ben, my son. He was really verbal and could spin a great story from the time he was little, but he didn't have the wherewithal to be able to put any words down on paper as a young child, and I didn't want to lose that. So when he was 2-3 years old, I was writing down his short little stories or funny things that he would say word for word. And then when I realized in his schooling that he couldn't write down, he couldn't answer questions on paper, he couldn't tell me a sentence and then write that sentence down. So I took what I had intuitively been doing for him as a younger child and continued to do that. And that was the game changer for us. And I recommend that to parents all the time. Scribe for your child. It is not cheating. It is an accommodation until they have the skills to do it themselves. My son had some physical, like learning issues, not dysgraphia, but something akin to it. And then, but we've heard of parents who have, kids with dyslexia, with ADD, ADHD, kids with autism, and they can all learn how to write, but they need help expressing their words onto paper. So that's the biggest thing you can do for your kids if they struggle to write. And if you say, I don't know what point I'm allowing them to be lazy, you will know if as soon as they melt down, as soon as they start throwing paper or wadding up or breaking pencils, they have reached the point of frustration and possibly the point of no return for the day. Yeah. But that is your cue to take over the writing. And it may be sharing the writing. You write a word that is hard for them to spell, if spelling is an issue, because that can be one of the things they struggle with. Or maybe I'll write a sentence, you write a sentence. Or I'll hold the words in my head and I'll give you the words so you can write them down. Or I will write your words and you can copy them. Or I will write the brainstorming ideas and then you'll be able to write your story based on the brainstorming. Lots of ways to do it. It is not cheating. It is not cheating. My son now has a PhD.
Oh, wow.
So I want to give you encouragement. Your child may not be an academic, that may not be where your child's heart beats, but it doesn't mean your child can't learn to write.
Well, and that's why, I love the story. And that those are the stories that, especially in today's world with the emergency schooling going into homeschooling and people wondering and trying to figure out what's going on and everything else. What I love about homeschooling is the parents, can take the initiative and tweak a little bit the learning process. And it's not hurting the child, because public schools, they're pushing them back another grade or having them skip another grade if it doesn't fit within their testing program. And that's what happened to my son. We tried public school for a couple weeks and it didn't go so well at all. And it was, my son was pretty much, it sounds exactly like yours. Just there was something there. There was something different. There was something, but his math scores were through the roof and everything else, but they didn't care. And just within a couple of weeks, they're like, nope, he doesn't get it. And so you talk about devastation. You talk about all these things where instead of we rallied around him just like you did, and helped him and get those little wins. And it makes a huge difference in a kid's life, and I love that story now that he's a PhD. Did he follow him to college? Did you have to?
He went straight into college from homeschooling, and then went to England to get his master's degree and met his future wife.
Oh, really?
This was after his sister said, don't you dare meet anybody when you go over there. And so now he lives in England.
Okay.
He's been married for they'll have their 12th anniversary this coming August.
Okay. All right. Now, WriteShop, is it just elementary? Do you do grades? How do you separate the levels and how far do you go?
We have 3 levels. So the primary level is for early elementary. So that's kindergarten through 3rd grade. And for former homeschooler. I was actually still homeschooling at the time that I wrote the older levels, and they came first, actually.
Okay.
So the primary levels are K through 3, but again, because I understand the need to be fluid in your homeschooling, and not every child fits a grade level, like my own son, there's a lot of flexibility. So we have a really great placement tool that's pretty darn accurate, and it takes into account their thinking skills over their ability to physically write. So if you get a level that you say, oh no, he wouldn't be ready for this, I'm sure he is ready for that, because it's supposing that you will accommodate his struggle to physically write.
Okay.
And that, because you want to place your kids at the level of their thinking skills, not their ability to do the writing. Okay, so think about a CEO of a company. He dictates a letter to his secretary. She writes it down. Is she the author? Does she sign her name? No, it's his letter. You think about, like, the Apostle Paul, or some ancient Roman senator, or, whoever, a president of the United States. They dictate to a secretary, to a scribe, and that person writes it down. But the credit goes to the idea generator, not to the person who used the pencil. So that's one of the reasons that I'm so big on that idea, and realizing that you're not going to hinder your child by starting them in the right level for their thinking skills. So we have the primary level, then we have junior, which is the 3rd through 6th or 7th grade. And then WriteShop 1 and 2 can be used as young as 6th grade, although it's better to start in 7th. And you can use that anytime in high school or middle school. But it's each one of those levels that I've mentioned. So we have 8 levels altogether, and they are each designed to be one academic year.
Okay. All right. And with families, I had 3, and they were really close in age, and different levels. But can you teach multiple ages together with WriteShop?
You can. So think about it like, with history or science, it's a lot easier to teach an object lesson or a history story or map work to your whole family. But when it comes to skills like math or writing, there's only so far that you can go to keep kids in the same level, because there are skills that take them inch by inch to the next place. So yes, you can definitely teach more than one child in a level, but you can't typically put all your kids in. So for instance, if you have a 3rd grader can go in primary B, primary C, or junior D, depending on where they are in the spectrum of placement. But if you have a 4th or 5th grader and you want to teach that 3rd grader at the same time, you can put both of them in junior D, which would not be too young for the 5th grader and not too old for the 3rd grader. And we have accommodations within the lessons, all the primary lessons, called Smaller Steps and Flying Higher. And they let you adjust the writing assignment up or down. If you need to challenge a child more, you do Flying Higher. If you need something that's going to make it a little less overwhelming, you do Smaller Steps. So there are lots of ways built into the curriculum that let you teach more than one child together. But it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. You're not going to be able to put, because you don't want to dumb it down either. Yeah. You don't want to put a 5th grader in a really young elementary book. And you don't have to start your kids in a younger level because you're afraid of missing out.
Yeah.
You just start them where they are. And if it was important enough to teach an earlier level, they're going to get it in the current level.
Wow, I love that. I love the flying high. I love that thought that you've already built in there to be able to tweak it and move along with it. I mean, that just shows that you built it with your kids in your mind, and you were there, you were doing it. It wasn't just, hey, I'm just going to write this curriculum. You were right there in the trenches, and it shows. I mean, that's a really cool way of doing things. For WriteShop, the homeschoolers that have been around for a while, they'll probably ask, what's the philosophy? Does it fit into one approach, like the Charlotte Mason approach, or classical, or is what is the philosophy behind?
That's a great question. WriteShop is pretty much an eclectic program. It doesn't really fit into a pigeonhole. There are some people who liken the youngest levels to a Montessori, Charlotte Mason-y sort of approach, but it really isn't classically Charlotte Mason. There's a lot of hands-on in the elementary levels, a lot of hands-on stuff, a lot of games and teaching games, and a lot of activity that is not writing based. So they are learning the skills they need for writing before they actually have to put any pencil to paper. And so that's really great for kids who, like if you like a more hands-on approach, that might, be something to consider. The younger levels do not fit the classical model at all. The classical model of education, and this is just a choice, or it's not a bad or a good, it just is what it is, that people who appreciate the classical model usually don't lean toward games and hands-on activity, what they might consider to be fluff. I don't know. We just see everything as a learning tool. And our biggest, the overarching philosophy of WriteShop is that writing can be fun and it can be learned in out-of-the-box ways to make it enjoyable for the kids and not so scary and terrifying and nerve-wracking for parents.
Yeah. So how do you make writing fun?
Well, good segue, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you want to teach your kids what synonyms are. And they're still in elementary school and not super excited about pulling out a thesaurus or whatever. And so you can play a game. So for instance, we built this into one of the WriteShop activities where they have, it's called Fishing for Synonyms. And basically it's the game Go Fish. Okay. But the cards that come with the pack, which are already printed on cardstock, ready to just cut out with your paper cutter and use, you have 4 cards per synonym. So if the synonym is brown, then you might have a card that says chocolate or beige or whatever. And so when instead of playing Go Fish, you say, do you have a synonym for brown? And then they have to look in their cards and see if they have a card that has a synonym for that word, and then they give it to you. And so a lot more fun to practice that skill playing a game. We have a game where they play a hopscotch game where they're doing a science fiction story. So each square, they can't progress to the next square. They start with a sentence starter like, last night my pillow talked to me. Okay, so that's the starting sentence. Then they throw their little keychain onto the next square, and before they can jump into the square, they have to add a sentence. And so they're building the sentence of the story, the science fiction story, based on another game they played earlier in the lesson. So it's just a way to do things in a more hands-on way. They're learning the skill, but they're not actually having to do physical writing. So anytime that you can involve a game, take a normal card game like Old Maid or Crazy Eights or whatever, and turn it into an academic exercise by replacing the cards with something that whether it's math or writing, grammar, there's lots of ways that you can incorporate games into it.
I love that. I mean, that'll be something simple that they'll remember. I mean, that's a really cool, that Go Fish with the synonyms.
Exactly.
I love that. That's awesome.
And they don't realize, I mean, this is one of the comments we get from parents when they send us little testimonials. They'll say, my children don't even realize they're learning. Or they want to keep playing. And it's like, okay, we've been doing this for half an hour and we got to move on to the next thing. But the kids are enjoying and having so much fun. And that, I mean, who could want anything more? And that that's really, I think, a unique feature of WriteShop.
Okay, I love that. One of the things I'm talking and speaking with people who are thinking about homeschooling, I had one a couple weeks ago, and they had this question for me because they want to the homeschool their child. Uh, they're kind of on the artistic level. The
Mhm.
kids artistic, and so a lot of this writing and everything just they don't know what to do. And so they're like, how am I going to ever teach my kid when I don't know
Mm.
really how to do it myself? They just they're artistic type of people, and they just never got it. So that was one of their biggest worries of like, I don't know how to do that. So for someone like that, what do you tell them?
Another super good question. We usually have three or four most common reasons why parents say they can't teach writing. One of them is that they never learned how to write themselves. And so they don't know really what good writing should look like. The second parent will say, hey, I love to write. I have a blog. I, write for my, newspaper, my community newspaper. I journal, but it comes so naturally to me that I don't know how to explain what I know to my kids.
Hmm.
Some parents just say, I'm afraid of, grading. I don't know. There's just so many reasons that people struggle to teach writing. But to answer your question, you need to find a curriculum that takes you as a parent step by step through the process. It doesn't just say, here, teach, or tell your child to write a story, or tell your child to brainstorm and then write, or give them a piece of paper and a writing prompt, because any of those things are recipes for disaster for most kids. Unless your child loves to write, there's no instruction, there's no guidance, and writing needs to be taught. It is not, here's a piece of paper, write something, or teach yourself. It needs to be taught. And so parents who struggle with that, if you can find a curriculum like WriteShop that walks you through step by step what to say, what to do, what to teach, when to teach it, how to space out the assignments, and how to, edit and grade, because that's also a big worry.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people, when they were emergency schooling and everything, that's what they were getting. They had no instructions or whatever, and the teachers were and the kids were exhausted, and then the parents were exhausted for it, and I was trying to tell them homeschooling is not that. That is something totally different.
Exactly.
That is not even close to homeschooling. And like you said, find a great curriculum, especially one that has been written by someone who's been there before us, and has gone through the steps like WriteShop has, and it will have the information and help them along the way, and it's amazing, when you find a great curriculum or curriculums, depending on, if you want to go one big one or right in to different subjects, when it's a great curriculum, it'll have all the information for you and help you and guide you through the steps. And that's one thing I like about WriteShop. It's you can tell that you were there, in the field when you are creating it, and you've thought through so many different things, and you're there to help the kids, but you're there to help the parents as well, to help the kids.
Absolutely.
And it's those little points where they learn to love, or love to learn, kind of like those games, and that's huge. That's huge for kids to be able to do. And everybody that's watching this, go out to Homeschool Connect Expo, out to the booth, real quick. I'm going to share kind of the booth and just let them know, just some of the things that you're going to be able to see, in the booth. Has all the information, and of course, the links out to the WriteShop website. But there's tons of really cool things. The placement quiz that we were talking about, a link out to that, and then also some videos and information that you can watch right in the exhibitor booth, and then go out to the WriteShop, and beautiful website that kind of goes through, the levels and the placement quiz. So a ton of information online for if you're looking for, a writing curriculum. WriteShop is definitely the one to check out and go through. And I had another question. I just totally forgot it though. I'll remember it here pretty soon though. So inside the WriteShop, when you buy the curriculum, you're not buying just a teacher's book, right? You have on the levels.
We have, yes. So I can share my screen and show some of that to your viewers. Okay. Is it the share button?
Yes. And you just pick what you want to share.
Okay. And then there it is. Okay.
There we go.
All right, here we go. So what I'm going to do is just kind of give you the big picture of WriteShop. And, it's like you were saying, we understand the challenges of teaching writing because we've been there. I mean, that's my heart is for parents who struggle to teach writing because I totally lived it with Ben. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the 3 levels, the primary and the junior. And I didn't mention WriteShop 1 and 2 for teens, but that's okay because I get scattered sometimes in my thinking, but we'll get to it here in the little slideshow. And so the basic premise of WriteShop is that it's not going to just teach your kids to write. It's going to show you step by step how to guide your kids through it. So it is parent directed. It is you are involved as a parent, and if you want something that's completely hands off, it's really hard to find that in a writing curriculum. But as you go through the stages, your kids will be more and more independent. So in the beginning, you'll need to be with them for every step. But as they go along, their independence is built into the program as you go along. So in WriteShop Primary, this is going to be perfect for your youngest kids, your K through 3rd graders. It's hands-on. It's very gentle. They will just really appreciate it. And then there are lots of different kinds of writing in each of our levels. And in WriteShop Primary, they're going to be learning to write or to dictate all kinds of simple stories and poems. And the creative writing activities that they do are going to make them happy. You're not going to get tears. You're going to get excited kids because they're doing stuff that's going to really meet their needs and reach them at the levels that they are. So every lesson in WriteShop Primary is broken into 8 activity sets. And these activity sets are done over the course of 3 weeks. So when I say a lesson, you might be thinking in your mind that would be what you might consider a unit. Basically, a lesson is a 3-week set of activities. And you're not working every day, which, oh, hello, homeschooling. Who wants to work every day on a subject when you have field trips and, other subjects? And so it's broken down where you're working at the primary level every other day. And so some weeks you'll work 3 days, some weeks you'll work 2. And it's great. It's really, really gentle. Then you've got activity set worksheets. So Sam was asking about what comes with the book. With WriteShop Primary, you get a teacher's guide, a spiral bound teacher's guide, and you get a student worksheet pack. It's very slim. It's not a workbook. You just see these pages, what you see here, my favorite things and tell me more. These are done once in the 3-week period. And the rest of the time, everything comes out of your teacher's guide. Then we have pre-writing. So this is the very beginning of the writing process. And this is what sets your kids started with the games that I was talking about. It uses multi-sensory, hands-on activities that are engaging for the kids. They're fun, but they educate and teach them at the same time. Another thing that you're going to do with your kids is guided writing practice. This is done most days, although really you only have to do it in the couple of days that lead up to them writing their story. But this is where you'll get a little simple script, and it's a chance for you to walk them through like a little guided discussion. So it's done orally. It's perfect for your kids, really super simple. That's my grandson, my English grandson, holding up his little paper. His mom was homeschooling him during lockdown. And so that was his little paper that he dictated to his mom. So you see how it says hello and there's blanks and all that? That's called predictable sentence starters. And so each day she would ask him different questions, the same question, but he would answer in different ways. So who do you want to say hello to today? I want to say hello to me. Okay. Hello, Ted. What day is today? Let's look at our calendar. And of course, Ted can't read, but you're doing this all orally. And so it's very simple and guided, very easy to do. Then you move on to brainstorming. So again, this is not all happening in the same day or the same week, but brainstorming is where you're just going to use these simple graphic organizers that you draw on a piece of paper or a paper plate to help them plan their story before they write it. And they'll have familiar topics and gentle guidance from you. Here are a couple more ideas. And so the ones that I showed you earlier from the younger books, and then you can see there's a little bit more that they're doing as they go into the older levels of WriteShop Primary. So the writing project would be what you would call their rough draft, or we like to call it a sloppy copy. And this is where, again, you can share the pencil with your reluctant writer, so the child can write if he's able. The mom on the right is helping her child write because the child needs a little bit more assistance. Either your kids don't have the skills, they don't know how to read yet, they haven't learned their alphabet, but they've got the ideas. That's totally fine. You can still do this with them. And then, believe it or not, you're going to do some editing with your primary kids. You work together, but gosh, you're not just red penciling everything. Instead, you're just saying, oh, wow, what a great story. Do we have a capital letter at the beginning of our sentence? Great, awesome, well done, job well done. As they go a little farther along, you might be saying, do we have a beginning, a middle, and end? Can you point to those and show me where's the beginning of your story? Where's the middle? Where's the end? Do you like how you ended your story? And boom, you're finished. We want to make it fun, not threatening, because editing is scary for kids. And if they've never edited and now they're in junior high, it can be overwhelming. So it's very, very gentle. And then the funnest part, if funnest is a word, is to publish their story. And so they have a crafty way of publishing their final draft. It makes it fun for them. They can have something to show dad or grandma, or at the end of the year, if your homeschool group does some kind of show and tell. It's just really nice for them to be able to do something for an audience that's not just you. So publishing is a really important step in the primary world. So that covers our youngest level. And then WriteShop Jr is for the upper elementary and even 7th graders. And it doesn't matter what kind of writer you have, whether they're strong or weak, reluctant, eager, they have writing glitches or learning issues, doesn't matter. There's so much to keep them engaged. It still has enough fun in the junior level where it's like, yeah, by the time they get to junior high, you're going to have a lot less of the game stuff, but now you can still capitalize on it and teach them with these games and things while you've got their attention. So they're going to have some different writing genres in WriteShop Jr. They're going to, basically have different elementary appropriate, but fiction and nonfiction activities like, mystery and science fiction, nonfiction reports, but they're going to have fun using lots of different writing assignments within each of their WriteShop Jr. books. And there are 3 of them: Book D, Book E, and Book F. And Book D is for 3rd, 4th, reluctant 5th. E is for 4th, 5th, reluctant 6th. And F is for 5th, 6th, and reluctant 7th. So just like in WriteShop Primary, WriteShop Jr. also has activity sets. Again, you're doing them for 3 weeks, and each day that you work, so 3 days a week, you're going to have something different that you do toward their final draft. So you're doing bits and pieces, bite by bite, increment by increment, and it's very gentle. And each day, maybe you're working at the primary level, maybe 15 minutes to 20, 25 a day. At this level, each time you sit down, you'll probably be working 20 to 45 minutes a day, depending on the level they're in, depending on the activity of the day. But again, it's not overwhelming. Okay, Fold and Go Grammar. This is not a full-blown grammar curriculum, but it's really fun. It's more like a lap book, and it teaches grammar skills or reviews certain grammar skills and certain writing skills. Like, it will introduce them to 5-paragraph writing in books E and F through a Fold and Go grammar book before they ever start doing their lesson. So it's a fun, colorful, hands-on, non-threatening way to introduce new concepts to them. And you can still be using your grammar program. Like if you're using Easy Grammar or Grammar Galaxy or whatever you like, you can still be using them alongside. There's no particular grammar that you have to use. So pre-writing, just like in primary, is going to be the fun, let's learn through games and hands-on activity kind of time. And, there are going to be spinners and games and cards and all kinds of fun ways that are hands-on to teach them the skills they need to prepare for their writing. And then your model and teaching time here is just done one time. So this is going to be your teaching time. And if it seems intimidating to you and scary, you're going to have a scripted dialogue to follow, which is really adaptable. It's not like you have to read this word for word because you're thinking, well, our story isn't going to be like the model story. No, it's not. So it's totally flexible and adaptable, but you've got something to go by. So here's an example. As Texas Tatum searched behind a tall cactus, she saw what? And then your child will answer. And then you can ask another question, and then your child will answer. So you're just prompting them and walking them through this process. Skill builders are another way to play games, but teach skills in the context of the lesson. So with the skill builders, you're going to teach them things like replacing weak words with strong words, or how to use form sentences of different lengths. That's all happens in the skill builders, and then they can apply it to their writing. Journaling is a one-time activity in each of the 10 lessons in the book. So like primary and junior both have 10 lessons. Each lesson takes 3 weeks. So you're looking at about 30 weeks of planned writing, and journaling happens one time in this 3-week period of time. This is absolutely judgment-free. This is not edited, graded, corrected, red penciled. No comments about misspelled words. No comments about missing punctuation. This is a chance for your child just to write. And they're going to have other opportunities in the lesson for correction, and this is not it. Again, brainstorming is super important to the writing process, and it's going to help your kids get on track before they do their writing. It kind of helps them to get their thoughts put together, to come up with the things they want to write about and include in their story. And they'll have different graphic organizers that they will use, like in Junior D. These help them plan their stories and reports with, you can see they're segmented. So the one with the, if you can see my cursor, this birthday cake is divided into sections, and each section is part of the body of their letter. And you've got the heading of the letter, which is going to include the heading and the greeting, and then you've got the signature at the bottom. The salutation is up here, the closing is down here, and these are the steps of the items they want to include. So when it's time to write, all the information is there. Same thing with these different kinds of graphic organizers. What's the problem? What's the solution? What happens in the beginning, middle, and end of the story, and so forth. So having a graphic organizer is huge to getting your kids feeling successful. Junior E has other similar ones. This one over here is their first 5-paragraph writing organizer. And then in book F. So you can see they all look different. They all have different purposes, but they all have the same goal of getting your kids prepared to do their writing. And that's what the writing project is, their sloppy copy. And I mentioned flying higher and smaller steps earlier, and that's where you'll find them in WriteShop. Now, editing. At this point, we're introducing some new things to them. This is when the first time they will have an actual checklist. They will actually have a bag of tools that they will use, and I'll show you those in a sec. But notice how I say here, make a photocopy for your sensitive child to edit. This is another one of those game-changing hacks for teaching writing. They are so attached to what they put on paper that if you make a mark, they fly off the handle and fall apart. So they're not so sensitive about making a photocopy, but somehow all that energy and effort they poured into their original, it's hard for them to take correction. But if you edit a photocopy, it's much easier for them. Also, you can use Post-it notes instead of writing on it at all. So that's another option for you. So there's that kit I talked about, a set it, read it, edit bag. And this would have highlighters, markers, maybe a little thesaurus, an editor's hat if your kids are into that kind of thing, colored pencils. Then they have a checklist and proofreading symbols. So we're giving them tools to help them with their editing, but also making it fun for them. And then finally, they will also publish their final drafts in a crafty way. We use a lot of file folders. They're just really, they lend themselves well to publishing ideas. And so that's WriteShop Primary. And then the last level that I'll share with you is WriteShop 1 and 2. And this is for our middle and high schoolers. Again, they can be in 7th grade. You can teach more kids together in this level. You can teach a 7th grader and an 11th grader together in WriteShop 1, but only if that 11th grader is really struggling and has never had any writing skill, or writing in formal instruction. But I would say the best range is 7th to 10th graders for WriteShop 1 and 8th to 12th for WriteShop 2. If your child already knows how to do 5-paragraph essays, they've aged out of WriteShop 2, and so you would move on to a curriculum that teaches other advanced writing skills. So here you're going to have a teacher's manual and a student workbook, like with WriteShop Primary. You have a teacher's manual and a student workbook. WriteShop Jr. has the teacher's manual, student workbook, and a time saver pack printed on cardstock. The Fold and Go is included in the student book for WriteShop Jr. WriteShop 1 and 2 has the teacher's guide and the student workbook and a copying and dictation optional workbook there. But we also have a video course, and the video course is excellent if you either are overwhelmed because you have 5 children and you don't know how you're going to get to all of them, because the video course will do all the teaching, the entire lesson for you. But it's also great if you want to foster more independence in your kids and they're leaning on you too hard, but you know they can do it on their own. So we also teach different writing genres in WriteShop 1 and 2, but they come under the general umbrellas of the descriptive, informative, narrative, and persuasive writing. So they will do a lot of descriptive writing in WriteShop 1. They'll do advanced descriptive narration in WriteShop 2. They'll work on point of view, narrative voice, just lots of different approaches, omniscience, limited omniscience. So, and the writing in all of our books is step-by-step, incremental, and it builds on previous lessons. So you don't want to jump around or jump ahead because they'll miss something. Here in WriteShop 1 and 2, they will also do some pre-writing games. They will be more age appropriate and not as cutesy as the younger levels, but still a lot of fun, and will get them excited and help to kind of loosen the cobwebs and work on some vocabulary skills and stuff. So there are 5 steps to the writing process: brainstorming, rough draft, self-editing, parent editing, and final draft. We actually take all our kids through the writing process, even the kindergartners. It's just, it builds and it's more appropriate, age appropriate, as they get farther along in the program. So the writing process is just really important to the writing success. So you will start with a practice paragraph. This is like your modeling and teaching time. You're going to get your kids familiar with the lesson expectations. You're going to teach them new skills. They're going to participate. You're going to participate. It's a group project, and it doesn't take very long, but it's done on the first day of the lesson. And then the skill builders, again, like with the younger levels, are going to teach your kids writing skills. It's going to take grammar and make it applicable. So we're not just going to say use an appositive in the sentence. We're going to assume they don't know what an appositive is, and we're going to teach them. And then they do their skill builders, then they use it in their writing, and then those skills get applied to other future writing lessons. They will brainstorm just like they did in the younger levels. Lots of different brainstorming that will help them with that particular writing assignment. And then their rough draft is their chance to just get those ideas on paper. That's what they will self-edit before you ever see it. You won't edit until you see the first revision. So it gives them a chance to get their ideas out and then work out the kinks before they give it to you. They will have these lesson-specific checklists. So every lesson will have its own checklist that is unique to that lesson. So this one under content doesn't say anything about character or setting or plot, because this is not for a narrative. So the narrative checklist will ask about those things and anything else that they learned that they need to apply in that lesson. So revising is a really big part. It's the refining process. And with younger kids, we normally don't have them do a second revision. You know, they just write and correct and maybe write a final draft. But in the WriteShop 1 and 2, the kids will self-edit and revise. Then they turn in a paper to you. Then you turn it back with your corrections. And then they will write their final draft. So that's where you will have your own checklist, just like the kids. You will be encouraging them with positive comments. You don't want to just make them feel like, hey, all you want to do is pick my paper apart. You're always so critical or whatever. So look for ways to be positive and to bless the things that they're doing well. And then they can write their polished and published final draft. And then they're not going to make it into a craft, but they'll neatly publish it or type it out, maybe keep it in a binder. And then you'll give it a grade that's not going to be arbitrary. It's not going to be guesswork. It's not going to be, oh, well, this just feels like a B+. You're going to have an objective grading tool to help you with your grading. At the elementary levels, it's just a little progress chart, that they're doing something none of the time, most of the time, some of the time, and the kids don't need to see that. But at the teen level, you're actually giving them a grade on their assignment. And so it's very doable and objective for you. So we talked about choosing the right level. In addition to the placement quiz, we have samples on our website, and I think those are all in our booth. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to you, Sam.
All right.
And that gives you the overview of our levels.
I mean, that's amazing. I love the brainstorming pages. I mean, how you're able to take that and break it down and allow them to brainstorm and give them those bits and pieces. I was sitting there watching. I'm like, that is just so cool. I mean, that is such a really great way of doing something like that. And you can see why WriteShop just works. And so I love it. That is really cool. And thanks for walking us through that and going through that process, because I think it just lets people know more. I mean, you've been around like, was it 20 years? You're going to
Yeah,
have your
20
20.
years.
That's awesome. I mean, that's so cool to be able to reach into so many people's lives and change their outlook of writing and learning, and so many more people jumping onto homeschooling and for really the right reasons, to really teach their kids and to bring learning right at home. What a better place. And it works. I always get that statement of, am I going to ruin your kids? No, my kids are great and out there in the real world now, working and married and having babies, and it's there. I had my youngest, he just got a big promotion where he's third in the company. It's a national company, and he's 19. And so he rose to the top very quickly.
How wonderful is that?
And his CEO asked him, like, how do we get more people like you? What is it? I mean, because they hire a ton of people. And so he's like, we just got to find some homeschool groups and hire the people, because the thing about it is you teach them how to learn and that process, I believe, is going to be one of the biggest things that differentiates everybody in college and in work. That where they know how to learn, they know how to train themselves, they know how to critically think, and it's those things like WriteShop to go through, and give them these nuggets and teach them how to do this stuff, and it just works. It just absolutely works, and that's something the public school systems unfortunately is not doing. And so I think not only are we not going to ruin our kids homeschooling, but I think it's even going to be more and more. They're going to stand out. They're just going to stand out in all the right reasons, when they get into the world. And so, but I thank you for your time to go through and being a part of Homeschool Connect Expo, and being part of today, kind of going through and just chatting with me about WriteShop and letting everybody know more about it. But before we head out, is there anything else that we might not have covered or might not have asked that might want to let people know before we head out of here?
Oh gosh, there's so much to talk about when it comes to teaching writing, and I love to talk about and share. So we have a blog, writeshop.com/blog. And in the sidebar, you can even choose by category, whether you want high school writing or teaching writing, or you just want some free writing prompts, or you want editing and grading tips. We've got all kinds. I've got hundreds of articles that I've written over the many, many years to encourage. Some of them are just ideas, tips you can use. So that would be a fun place to browse around. And so writing.
Well, everybody go out to the Homeschool Connect Expo, go out to their booth. The links are right down to below, and check out their booth. They got some great videos talking about, Kim's on there, giving different ideas and different things that she does. And then the links out to the website, and get involved and take, now, does it cost anything for the placement quiz?
No, the quiz is free, and it's 30 seconds, literally, moms.
Oh, wow.
And it's not for your child to take, it's for you to take.
Okay.
Basically, you have 3, maybe 4 questions, and boom, you've got a level. And trust it. But if you have further questions, you can always reach out to us personally, and we have a team that loves to help. And they've all used WriteShop and know it inside out. So
that's awesome.
There you go.
Very good. Well, very good. Well, Kim, thank you again for one, being a part of this, and then two, take the initiative when you're there with your son Ben, and putting this all down together for the homeschoolers. I mean, it just it's I love these stories because you're doing it for your kid and you're doing it for your child because out of love, and that love kind of goes into the curriculum, and then that curriculum goes out to everybody else, and you just might never know this side of heaven what impact that you have on kids and families. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking the time and the initiative to put this all together. So
thank you, Sam.
I know I appreciate it, and you will too. If you jump out to the booth and out of the website, get involved in WriteShop. And especially if you're thinking about homeschooling, you can do it. So thank you so much again, and we'll have to do this again. I think this would be great because there's just so much information to go out there. So
absolutely, you can dive deep on any number of these topics, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it was such an easy conversation to kind of go through and just talk, and so we'll have to do that more and more, and that way we can help more people out. So, Kim, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Take care.